This is India Today Global. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan, a fresh insight into global dynamics and power plays. So come, let's search out the truth, cut out the noise, and present you the real facts that shape your world. "2024 is a year of elections that will be shaping the world. And the biggest festival of democracy just concluded in India. Prime Minister Modi's first decade as the Indian Premier came with its fair share of ups and downs and some surprises in between. Modi is the only Prime Minister to be sworn in for a third consecutive time since Jawaharlal Nehru. But the voters' mandate for the third term is for a coalition government, and that means new dynamics and a change in the way decisions are made. So as Prime Minister Modi prepares to lead the nation once again, the international community is keenly observing the potential shifts and continuities in India's foreign policy. Modi 3.0's global positioning will likely be built on achievement and challenges of his previous terms. So there is a lot at stake, from strategic alliances to regional security. Modi's third term will be crucial in shaping India's international trajectory in an increasingly complex and multipolar world. First, let's talk about 5 big challenges that lie ahead for the Modi dispensation. The biggest elephant in the room is India's China challenge. One thing that the Modi government has been struggling with is being at constant loggerheads with China. Tensions along the India-China border rose to its highest since 1962. On June 15, 2020, at least 20 Indian soldiers and 4 Chinese soldiers, that's their official figure, were killed in a face-off in the Galwan Valley, leading to an ongoing standoff. All the Bonhomie and summit-level meetings came to a notch. New Delhi, on the one hand, said there are no Chinese soldiers on Indian soil, and on the other hand, they have been demanding status quo. So what is it?
न वहां कोई हमारी सीमा में घुस आया है, न ही कोई घुसा हुआ है, न ही हमारी कोई पोस्ट किसी दूसरे के कब्जे में है.
We have a difficult relationship with China. We're perfectly capable of managing it. It's if I get global understanding and support, obviously it is of help to me. But this idea that I do a transaction, that I come in one conflict because it will help me in conflict too, that's not how the world works.
Nearly 4 years on, India is still seeking complete disengagement. However, experts believe that India-China ties could take an upward trajectory once there is a breakthrough on the boundary front. A growing trade deficit with China is another issue that New Delhi would want to change over the next 5 years. There is a battle for supremacy. China has been trying to strategically encircle India. India's proximity to the West, engagement with Taiwan, and hosting of the Dalai Lama have been constant irritants for Beijing. Which brings me to the second challenge, India's neighborhood. Relations with neighbors near and far have been bittersweet over the years. India's Neighborhood First policy was Prime Minister Narendra Modi's signature foreign policy initiative that sought to develop better relations with the country's neighbors. But over the last decade, New Delhi's posture and growing Chinese pressure have prevented the country from winning allies in the region as much as they would have wanted to. In the first few years of Modi's rule, regional organizations like South Asia Association for Regional Cooperation, that is SAARC, were given utmost importance, as was there in their manifesto and also in the oath-taking ceremony of Prime Minister Modi in 2014. But then, following series of terror attacks from Pakistan, SAARC meetings were called off. Once hailed, today SAARC is a defeated bloc. While Pakistan has always been a problem neighbor, with others there are good and bad days. Take Nepal, for instance. In 2015, India-Nepal relations dipped due to India's perceived involvement in Nepal's constitutional crisis. Relations with Nepal worsened in 2020 when India issued a new political map including disputed areas of Kalapani and Lipu Lake and opened a road link via Lipu Lake to Kailash Mansarovar. Nepal responded by releasing its own map. Meanwhile, India and the Maldives have been caught in a maelstrom. A change in government in friendly Maldives led to the change in attitude towards India. Starting from an India out campaign to presidency, Mutsu has ensured continuity in his anti-India policy by demanding Indian military personnel withdraw from the archipelago nation. But with President Mutsu attending Prime Minister Modi's oath-taking ceremony on the 9th of June, and Maldives needing India's economic assistance for a full-scale revival to pre-COVID times, it seems like there could be thaw in ties between the two countries. The good news neighbors for now have been Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. After the financial crisis in Sri Lanka, when the world turned its back, India was the first responder. A change in guard from pro-China to pro-India with Ranil Wickremesinghe really helped matters. On the other hand, Dhaka under Sheikh Hasina has provided a stable hand to foster strong bilateral relations between the two countries, despite issues such as the Teesta River water, which is still unresolved. The two transitioned from a relationship marked by mistrust to one of improved bilateral ties. India sees Bangladesh as crucial for its eastern border security and other strategic advantages. However, in recent times, there has been an increase in negative perception of Indians in Bangladesh, fueled by religious and nationalist sentiments. There was an India Out campaign by the opposition in Bangladesh as well. Coming to one of the most tricky neighbors of India, the Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. India and Afghanistan share a deep historical and cultural bond, but Kabul's alignment with Pakistan is indeed a concern. Afghanistan is an important country as it is India's gateway to Central Asia. This is where India will have to bolster and preserve its vital relationship with Afghanistan, and New Delhi is doing just that by engaging whoever is in control of Kabul, this time the Taliban. Third big challenge that India will have to deal with is rise of the Khalistani movement across the globe. In these elections, 2 Khalistani sympathizers have won. Clearly shows what the government is up against. Khalistani separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed in Canada last year. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wasted little time in accusing the Indian state of murder. India has categorically denied any involvement and dismissed Trudeau's charges as absurd. The charges led Canada and India to expel intelligence officers posted in each other's country, prune the staff in their respective diplomatic missions, and suspend all bilateral engagements for the time being. In the meantime, one of India's closest allies, the US, divulged an alleged spy plot by Indian agents to assassinate another Khalistani separatist on American soil. India is caught between rock and a hard place, and so is the West. The other big challenge would be invest in India, bringing investors into India. Modi will need to rethink about the best path to Viksit Bharat or a developed India. This is the government's goal in terms of economic growth as it aims to shake off its status of an emerging economy and become a developed economy. And what would that take is investment and economic growth. India offers a total of $28 billion of subsidies for firms in 14 sectors as a way to encourage increase in output. Self-reliance as a policy priority pushes manufacturing and bringing businesses to India. But various studies show that progress in Indian manufacturing will require a lot of reform in 2 areas above all, land and labor. As Modi begins his 3rd term, he might be keen to implement these reforms to boost Indian manufacturing. Now let's talk about a perception challenge for the Modi government. The influence of Hindutva ideology in India's foreign policy in the recent past. Prime Minister Modi's recent political campaigns are mostly marked by a strong emphasis on Hindutva, even while mentioning neighboring nations. Globally, the appeal for such rhetoric is restricted to only a section of the Indian diaspora, a section of them. To be fair, Prime Minister Modi did try to connect foreign policy with Indian values by stressing on yoga and banking on the Indian diaspora, but it needs to present itself as a champion of a diverse nation. Those were the challenges. but there have been achievements in the last decade. Prime Minister Modi has made a mark as a world leader. India has been spoken of, mentioned more now than ever before. He received awards and accolades from far and wide. In June last year, Modi's visit to the US marked a significant turning point, showcasing a remarkable transformation in bilateral relations. This visit was not just a diplomatic success for India, but a personal victory for Modi. Once denied entry into the US over his alleged role in the 2002 Gujarat riots, Modi now was the talk of the town, standing among esteemed global leaders who have addressed the US Congress twice, a recognition shared by figures like Winston Churchill and Nelson Mandela. India has been on a massive defense acquisition spree. Some major advancements include the sale of integrated air defense systems to India in 2020, acquisition of 30 Predator drones from Washington in 2021, order of C-130J Super Hercules aircraft in 2022, and the ongoing discussion for the acquisition of F-21 fighter jets. A rough estimate suggests that India-US defense trade agreements increased from $1 billion in 2008 to $20 billion as of March this year. Now, credit where it's due. This one example shows, under Prime Minister Modi, India's willingness to strongly engage and use every possible diplomatic leverage. And trust me, the event of T20 Cricket World Cup in the US will soon seep into the diplomatic rhetoric between the two countries. This brings us to the big multilateral blocs. India wants to be in the driver's seat rather than just being a balancing power. Take the Quad, for example, a diplomatic partnership between India, Australia, Japan and the US. It was formed in 2004 to provide humanitarian relief and disaster assistance after the Indian Ocean tsunami. But soon the focus shifted to the Indo-Pacific region to counter China's growing assertiveness there. But until the 2021 Quad Summit, this forum was restricted to official level meetings for fear of provoking China. The decision to engage Quad at the leadership level was taken by Modi during his second term when relations with Beijing dipped drastically. Today, rising tensions in the Indo-Pacific region have made it imperative for India to act as a key player. The country has now adopted a multi-aligned strategy. India's G20 presidency will go down as an outstanding achievement on the global stage. India secured a unanimous statement that brought together Russia, China and the West, reminding the world of Modi's statement at G20 summit held in Bali the previous year, that is 2022.
आज का युग युद्ध का है नहीं और हमने फोन पर भी कई बार आपसे इस विषय में बात की है कि डेमोक्रेसी और डिप्लोमेसी और डायलॉग, ये सारी बातें ऐसी हैं कि जो दुनिया को एक स्पर्श करती है। आने वाले दिनों में शांति के रास्ते पर हम कैसे बढ़ सके, उसके विषय में जरूर आज हमें चर्चा करने का मौका मिलेगा। आपका व्यू पॉइंट समझने का मुझे भी एक अवसर मिलेगा।
The summit gave New Delhi the platform to showcase its global leadership and promote Modi as a power player in foreign policy. This also came at a time when India was being hailed for its remarkable recovery from COVID-19 and the triumph of Chandrayaan-3 landing on the dark side of the moon. Now, another major place where India played it right was West Asia. Modi government's focus and outreach to the Middle East, or what we call West Asia, has been significant. Modi's outreach toward the region had started early in his first term with the visit to the United Arab Emirates in August 2015, the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister in 34 years. He visited Saudi Arabia in October 2019, and Egypt in 2023 signed strategic partnership agreements with India. Modi's visit to Bahrain in August 2019, the first ever by any Indian Prime Minister, and to Qatar in February 2024 also added weight. Partnerships in the region have enhanced from mere partnerships to strategic, comprehensive, special strategic, to name just a few. Modi inaugurated Abu Dhabi's first Hindu temple. A remarkable achievement recently was a rare death sentence pardon for the 8 Indian sailors by the Sultan of Oman, this after the two leaders met on the sidelines of COP28 in Dubai. Since the onset of the Israel-Hamas war, India has reasserted its long-standing commitment to non-interference and neutrality. Moreover, India and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, that is OIC, witnessed rapid changes under Prime Minister Modi. Over the years, India and OIC had witnessed a turbulent relationship courtesy to our not-so-friendly neighbor, Pakistan. Ever since India's rise, Pakistan lost its dominion over the 57-member intergovernmental organization, with most nations steering clear of the Kashmir question today. For instance, India was invited as a guest of honor at the OIC Foreign Ministers meeting in 2019, which was attended by none other than Sushma Swaraj. This was seen as a big diplomatic victory for India. Now, in the Persian Gulf, despite the war, India's relations with Iran continues unperturbed, as both countries signed a 10-year agreement to develop and operate the Chabahar port in southeastern Iran. Chabahar is expected to be connected to the international north-south transport corridor, bringing India closer to Europe through Iran. Now, a significant win for Indian diplomacy was also dehyphenation of Pakistan. For those of you who don't know, dehyphenation in international politics refers to independently engaging with two countries despite their adversarial relationship with each other. But also, it means how you approach those countries. For example, all major West Asian countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iran have dehyphenated India and Pakistan in their respective foreign policy approaches. The recent visits were a very clear example. When Arab leaders visited India, they did not visit Pakistan and vice versa, clearly showing that even in South Asia, the two countries cannot be clubbed together. India has stood her ground. When the West expected India to turn its back on Moscow in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, India benefited from it. While the European Union and US slapped sanctions on Russia, New Delhi did not dither. Not only did India manage a waiver for its defense imports from Russia, but also started buying oil at much cheaper price, amid strictest of sanctions.
You know, somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems.
Moreover, thousands of Indian students studying medicine in Ukraine were evacuated from the rest of the region. India's silent diplomacy was seen as a huge win for Prime Minister Modi as the world was witnessing its first WhatsApp-Instagram era war. As Vishwa Bandhu, India stood by its friends and its own. Be it humanitarian assistance, medical assistance or disaster relief, India rose to the occasion as a great leader. For instance, India evacuated thousands of Indian students studying medicine from Ukraine in the wake of Russia-Ukraine war. Not just Indians, India also brought back Nepali nationals who were duped in the name of jobs and recruited in the Russian army to fight the war in Ukraine. Similarly, New Delhi launched Operation Ajay to evacuate its citizens from Tel Aviv after the Israel-Hamas war began in October last year. Moreover, the Indian Navy intervened in various piracy attempts in the Red Sea and rescued fishing boats in the international waters. On the other hand, India garnered praise from all over the world when it started the Vaccine Maitri program for the fast-paced recovery from COVID-19. Under this initiative, India supplied over 200 million COVID vaccines to almost 98 countries. Now, Modi has been selling the Modi Ki Guarantee moniker through this election campaign, which brings us to his promises. Let's take a look at the 5 goals set out and can they achieve these goals. A working group formed by Ministry of Commerce has drafted a roadmap for India to achieve a $5 trillion economy by 2025. This has been one of the key promises of the Modi government in the past. However, in a detour from Modi's earlier target, the government now says that India is on its way to become a $5 trillion economy by 2027-28. Thus, all eyes will be on Prime Minister Modi's third term to see whether he will be successful in achieving this set target on time. Now, when Modi assumed office in 2014, he also launched the Make in India initiative to transform India into a global manufacturing hub. This aimed to attract foreign investment, boost domestic manufacturing and generate employment opportunities. This initiative also hopes to increase the manufacturing sector's growth rate to 14% and the manufacturing sector's contribution to GDP to 25% by 2025. With the country's unemployment rate hovering around 8%, it will be interesting to see how the Modi government hopes to achieve this uphill task by next year. Another commitment of the Modi government, the UNSC membership. India eagerly wants to obtain a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. New Delhi has pursued a multi-alignment approach, positioning itself as a voice of the Global South in multilateral forums. This approach enhances India's influence and could be a pivot point, but China is India's biggest challenge here. To make this promise good, India will have to amend relations with Beijing or get enough international support to seek an overhaul of the UN body itself. India for long has been pushing for UN reforms. Now, taking back Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which is POK, was again one of the many promises made by the BJP.
पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर भारत का हिस्सा है और इस पर हमारा अधिकार है.
However, this seems like a risky endeavor. With a coalition government in place, it would be difficult to venture into aggression in the region. And finally, coming to Modi's much-touted and ambitious commitment, it's climate diplomacy. From bilateral negotiations to climate summits to multilateral fora, India is everywhere when it comes to climate. India has been demanding that developed countries take up responsibility for mitigating climate change. With focus on climate justice, the new government should look at generating climate finance and influencing international standards. India has committed to reduce 45% of the emissions by 2030. However, large gaps still remain in committing to a sustainable future. These were the 5 challenges, achievements and goals of Prime Minister Modi and his administration. We've seen what Prime Minister Modi can deliver, but we'll have to see what he will continue to deliver, not in a Modi Sarkar, but in an NDA Sarkar. Thank you for watching. Joining me to discuss the past decade of foreign policy as also the future is Congress MP Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Tharoor, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global.